Yeah, I think Roz. Is it Roz? What is it, Rosalind?
Roz, yeah.
They just call you Roz. I think you're
Peaches. You can call her Peaches if you like.
Just
she really wants to be called Peaches. So
hey, Roz, your whole name is
Roz's hair looks nice. It does.
Thank you.
As Jordan says, don't fuck with the part. And I like the braces story, and I like the fact that your fiance wants to hug you and let everybody know this is my woman. Like, dude,
well, he better.
You can't steal your girl off of Zoom. All right. Cool.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Technically Diverse podcast, featuring the Quadcast crew.
welcome to episode number 9 of the Technically Diverse podcast. We are located at the intersection of cultural diversity and technology. I am Jordan. Co-hosting the pod is our resident adrenaline junkie, Ruby, aka Amsako.
All the way from India.
Behind the scenes and working his magic is Uncle Mike. Remember, if it ain't Mike, it ain't right.
Hey, how's it going, everyone?
And keeping us in line and doling out law and order is our producer, Roz, aka Peaches.
Hi. And I would love to add on that our co-host, Jordan, is actually called Cream. And we are a dynamic duo.
Cut that right
Peaches
out.
And Cream. Yes, I'm adding this.
There's no cream, it's just Peaches.
To understand what Peaches is and where it came from. And it's Peaches and Cream because we bicker like old ladies. There we go.
Call us the Golden Girls. So today we have a really special guest. Some have described him as Canada's Black King of Comedy. He's an entertainment and comedic trailblazer. Please welcome Jay Martin, the Renaissance Man.
Hey, wow, thanks for the intro. I'd like to be one of the kings of comedy. The king that people are just always coming for the king, and the emperor needs new clothes. So I rather have some other kings. But thank you for having me on the show, guys.
So Jay, you're a Maltonite. Uncle Mike's a Maltonite. He's told us so much about you. I want to jump into Jay Martin. Not literally, like I don't want to like fly into you, but I want to get into your background and I want to find out a little bit more. So in your words, why don't you tell us who Jay Martin is?
Wow, I like that question. Jay Martin is a trailblazer, kind of entrepreneur, comedian. I love the terminology of Renaissance Man. The first time I got called a Renaissance Man, truth be told, I had to go look it up because I was like, what's that? But with all of the truth be told, I'm one of those guys that kind of jumps into everything. And, when you were growing up, it was always your parents coming from a Caribbean background stating that, hey, you can't be a jack of all trades and master of none. But I disagree with that statement. I think you can be a jack of all trades. And that's what I aspired to do. You know what I mean? I took everything that I got growing up. I made an example of it, and I tried to turn it into something special. We're lucky to know that Mike has seen the journey from its conception. So he's kind of watched over it to see what's Jay getting into, and their family has been a great influence into my career and getting it started. But yeah, that's basically me in a nutshell. Comedian, host. There's no real target that I put on my back. I want to have a lot of things going on at the same time.
So Jay, as you said, I've seen it from the beginning, and I go back and I try to look at what was your very first show, like when you went in front of that crowd, and from what I can think of, I was thinking it was Wizard of Oz when you were a munchkin.
Wow. Wow. This guy didn't tell me he was going to be like this. I was like, my first show. Well, at the comedy club. No, I mean your first show, dude. Second grade, Wizard of Oz. I was casted to be in the Wizard of Oz play at my high school, grade school, Marvin Heights, public school. And I was a munchkin. Yeah, and I remember I had to be one of those munchkins that came out and did the little dance and kicked my feet. But it was funny because I was one of the munchkins, and one of Mike's brothers was a munchkin with me, and we kind of bonded from there. But that was my first time at acting and being on stage, and I can't lie to you, it was nice because, you know, to be selected without auditioning, they kind of just found the kids that had that kind of energy. I knew that the stage was really someplace I'd like to be. When I was there, I was so comfortable. It was fun. I was the munchkin, but I was like the lead munchkin. Which, I don't know if that's a great thing, because what happens
Let's
to the
differentiate.
right. I wasn't like the other two punks in the background.
Yeah, you were the one in the middle. That's what it was. Yeah, you were the one in the middle.
I was the one in the middle. So they had to follow me. It was fun because you got to go to practice and rehearse. And I do love that about our childhood. It taught us a lot about working with others. The ability to, you know, get out and practice and do what you want to do. But it taught us that camaraderie that stays with you. You know what I mean? It helps you when you're working with other people in other stages.
And were you always like the funny kid in class? Like, you know, do you have any like other talents? Like you mentioned like acting and stuff. And like, I've heard that you've got a crazy singing voice.
Right. Not this morning. It's not. I'm not going to.
You weren't singing in the shower?
Nah. I'm not going to sing Sunday morning. But you know, it's funny you say that. Yes, comedian part, but the acting part works. Writing, music. I play music. I sing a bit. I was a backup singer in my brother's group. That's the one where we got our Juno Award for. So you kind of dabbled in everything. And because my brother was such a great musician, could play all these instruments. Some of the music fell into me, the music he would play, and it definitely fell into me. So I would rap. I did a little rapping stint.
Major Martin.
Which explains the outfit today. That's right.
Yeah.
Nice.
I've got a mix of LL Cool Jason with Resident E. See, but it's been great because I like that question, Jordan, because a lot of people find out new things about you in your acting career, and then they're like, "Wait, you're an actor?" They didn't know, or "Wait, you play piano?" They didn't know. It's nice to show people multi-talented, you know what I mean, skills. So I like that. But acting, I love right now because comedy is acting always, but it's a new dimension that I want to jump into because I want to be in the theatrical world, behind the camera and in front of the camera.
Ruby, I see you want to chime in here.
Yeah. So, seeing as you're a jack of all trades, what's one thing that you tried and you're like, man, I just can't do it?
Nothing. Continue. Next question. Everything I've been able to do. What's wrong with you? You know what? What did I try? Well, you know what's funny? I don't say it didn't work, not for us, but Mike and I started a business and we called it by our last names, which is Marmel Productions. And we managed some singing groups and dancers. And you know what? It was a lot more than we actually bargained for. Because we both were like, we love these guys. We want their talent to go well. And we want to be these guys. And we practiced with the group. And to be honest with you, not the dancers, Mike, but the singers were incredible. Like the reason why Mike and I, like, don't get me wrong, we had other guys that joined our management team. But the reason why we believe so much is because they were so talented. We were like, there's no way these guys aren't going to get a record deal. And well, there was a way because they didn't get a record deal. But, I'm like, no way. But it took a lot of our time. Like, I think, Mike, what did we put up? Like 3-4 years of our life, like daily practicing with them, making sure their parents were cool, making sure their grades were up, making sure they were getting to and from rehearsals. And we would bring them places and people would be like, you've got to be kidding me, blown away. They were like Destiny's Child. No ifs, ands, or buts. They were so talented. But that would be the area, to answer your question, would be that I think we kind of failed with, because not that we have no choice. We had no way in allowing them to get signed. We couldn't walk in, but it was the one thing that we didn't achieve, right, Mike? Because we achieved everything. It was like I would throw parties, they'd be successful. I did comedy, it was successful. Anything we did was very successful. The girls were successful, but they didn't make it. And then they broke up. They got to that stage where girls get, I'm not dissing y'all females, but Y'all can be best friends as kids and girl guides and just want to stab each other by high school. I don't get it. That's not what works for us guys.
Roz is really angry. She's not appreciating that.
I'm not. I don't know. I'm not going to chauvinist. I'm not a chauvinist, but I'm just like, I don't know how friends stay together so close. And one of them called me 3 days ago, Natalie, and said, you know, one of the girls was in her university class and they never spoke. And I'm like, how? You guys have been friends from childhood. You know what I mean? I don't know. That doesn't work with us. Like, Mike knows me from the second grade. We've never had a fight or an argument. And I'm not saying girls have arguments. I'm just saying there's a way that girls kind of grow apart when they get older if they're different. I don't know.
I think that happens with everyone.
Oh, go on, Roz.
Yeah, go on, Roz.
Oh, I was saying, I think that happens with everyone, right? Like, people grow and they change, and there's things that you value that other people, your friends maybe don't value anymore. And then, like, the way that you think your life is headed, maybe they're not going to be, they end up being like a hindrance, or they're not helping you to actually like propel in your life. And especially friends from like school, like that's like when you're really growing. So that happens with men and women.
So you're saying like, you know, people grow up, they blossom, and then they just shed the dead weight.
Or maybe women are just more evolved.
And again, it's not about, I'm not even I'm being honest with you. I'm not disagreeing with her. All people shed weight. Like, I mean, I've shed weight with guys. I'm not saying that it isn't. I just thought these girls put so much time and effort into a goal that they all believed in. And I couldn't believe that they, at the end of the goal, that's where it left off. You know what I mean? Even though they didn't achieve it. It wasn't about the singing or the performing. It was personal. So that was the part I was confused.
I wouldn't call it a failure then. You know, if you look back on it, it wouldn't be a failure because that was a time where it converted you from being that music artist, right? Turning from Major Martin, getting into the business aspect of it. And then after Marmel, Ajame, and what you have now with your comedic career, right? So it was a process.
It was definitely a learning experience. I had a hard time answering Ruby's question with something that didn't go that well, but that's the only thing that could pop into my brain.
Okay, so to contrast that, what would you consider your greatest achievement then? Because like you've won a Juno, you've performed at the Winnipeg Film Festival, like you've done a bunch of things. So what would you say is the greatest achievement?
Honest to God, I'm not gonna be cliche, but I'm gonna say my family is my greatest achievement. We've overcome a lot through our children. You know what I mean? I'm very proud of them and what they've accomplished. You know what I mean? Some people look at Steve Harvey. He has a daughter right now that they have her in the news as one of these girls that has dated so many people, and that questions his ability of being a man and a father and the success he's had. But I think my children have made me very, very proud. That's one of the biggest things I'm very proud of. From a career and entertainment point of view, just being recognized and having a resume that's allowed me to perform with some of the greatest of all times, that's a big achievement. Like when you're in it, you're not like, oh my gosh, you're opening for Steve Harvey, or oh my gosh, you're opening for Jamie Foxx and they're huge, or Brian McKnight. But when you're doing it in the day of, you're just like, and you're moving on. Then you add it to your resume and you're like, wow, this is pretty kick-ass. The resume is pretty tight. So it's fun to say I've achieved the opportunity of performing with some of the greats. That would be another one that I'm proud of.
Wow, because that's surprising. I would think that you, during the moment, like you said, when you're opening for Steve Harvey, you would be, oh man, this is like amazing. Like, this is the best thing I've done so far. But for you to say that after the fact is when you realize that is super, super interesting. Now,
you're too nervous, Jordan, not to cut you, but you're too nervous. Like you're too nervous when you open for all of these people. Like you want to, I'm not being rude, but you want to vomit. You don't, you don't go, I'm opening for this. You're terrified. All of these things that I've opened for and all these shows, I'm absolutely terrified. I'm still terrified before a show.
Oh, and I'm happy that you brought that up because, you know, I was going to ask you if you've ever experienced stage fright, because even when I've had to do like interviews or anything like that, you know, you always have that feeling in your stomach. And I'm like, you're on stage and like opening for these huge guys. I'm like, I'm sure you feel something like that. But a lot of like performers like don't really shed light on that sort of aspect.
It's terrifying. Let me put it this way. When I saw Steve Harvey himself pacing like a madman, he was terrified. And I'm like, what are you terrified of? And I got to open for you. Like, how are you terrified? Steve Harvey, you think you see, Family Feud, and he's like, who's next? Who's next? He is terrified. There's no if, no ands, or buts. That guy was pacing like he was putting a hole in the floor. I just was like, you got to be kidding me. You know what I mean? How are you so nervous? So he's nervous. I'm nervous. I've seen Russell nervous. Russell said something to me before we went on. I was like, how are you going to do this? I'm terrified. How do you feel? Because I'm terrified too. If you're not terrified before performing, you should get out of the game. You've lost your knack to do this, because you should always be scared. I think so. I'm always scared.
It's funny. I remember with Ari Spears, he never seemed nervous.
No. Ari Spears never seemed nervous, or that show?
He didn't seem nervous. Like the time when we picked him up and brought him and stuff, he didn't.
Well, part of the reason why he wasn't nervous because he's a jerk. But besides,
really, he's a jerk.
Oh my God, the biggest jerk. And I don't care if it's recorded. I would tell.
Wow, that's surprising to me.
Because of all of the entertainers I've met, and I'm not the judge of jerk unless I'm cooking chicken. But besides that, he is like, we did a show in Just for Laughs, and in Just for Laughs is wonderful. I got to tell you guys, because when you get to Just for Laughs, they put all the comedians in a hotel. So it's like a weekend at Bernie's in one hotel. So you're in the lobby and JB Smooth is over there, or Kevin Hart is over here. Like, they're all in this hotel. So it's really cool. And then they give you a schedule. And because there's so much going on, you just got to follow your schedule. Well, we get picked up at the hotel to do this show with everyone that's been on television. So they got people from Mad TV, BBC. If you've been on television, you're on the show. I don't know how I got on this show, because I didn't have my own television show, but I was on this show. But him and I were the only two black guys in the van. So the van picks you up and it brings you to where the old Forum is in Montreal. And the old Forum is just like it was. There's a comedy store in there called the Comedy Nest. And you have to take that freight elevator like they do at Madison Square Gardens. And we're in the car and they're like waiting for one comedian. And the driver is just this French guy going, I think it's everybody. We are ready to go. And they're like, no, there's one more guy. He's coming down right now. I just messaged him. And Aries is like, I don't give a shit about that guy. Let's go. And he left the guy. Like, he told the driver to leave. So everyone in the back of the car is like, what a prick. Like, we're all doing one show in one place for TV. It's being taped. And he was like, I don't care. That's not my problem. Do I got to be somewhat driver? Let's go. And I was like, wow, what a prick. And when we get there, all of us are getting out of the van and he runs to the elevator. Now, I just told you it's a freight elevator, which everyone knows a freight elevator holds like 20 people. Dude went up there by himself.
No.
Who does that? And we're like, did he just go up by himself? Like, we're all going to the same green room. So then the elevator comes down and these British guys are like, hey, who is that guy? What TV show is he from? And I'm like, well, he's from Mad TV. You know what I mean? Which is a big show. And he goes, and they go, what does he do best? And I'm like, well, he's really awesome at doing imitations. Well, if he's imitating a prick right now, I had to make like I don't know him as the two black guys, and I know him because that was after I brought him here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, man. So I'm just like, hey, you can bash. You're not supposed to bash, but I got to tell the truth, man. You know what I mean? Aries is a prick. He's a prick. I had him coming to Toronto to do a show here, and I had him be the halftime show at a Toronto Raptors game because we knew Mark Eversley. And he hooked it up for him to be the halftime show, Raptors versus Detroit Pistons. The Raptors said, if he's coming here, we're going to pick him up from the airport in a limousine. And he didn't show. He did not show up.
Wow.
I remember when we picked him up, he was late.
Yeah, and he was mad. He was like, your lawyer's supposed to get me up because he picked me up like the week. I had to bring him back again because he didn't show up. He was hard to deal with, man. And I had paid him a fee, a deposit, but because he never showed up for the Raptors game, he says, I'm going to only charge you the deposit, which is cool. That's cool. But then he came back for just the deposit amount, which is half his salary. And he was like, you ain't gonna give me no more money? I'm like, dude, you cost me money. Because that was when Toronto didn't believe anyone could come. You know, R. Kelly could have said he's coming for free and no one believed it. So when you didn't show up to come bring you back again and go, now he's coming, was just like, I'm losing $5,000 just to do that.
Oh, man, that is brutal.
Sorry, I kind of went off on a tangent.
No, that's fine. That's
someone
awesome.
Press the Ari Spears button, you or Mike, and that it kind of brings out my my ticks.
I've been feeding them stuff, so you're getting some duties later on.
So, are you done with comedy now? Because like I saw like in 2018, like you've kind of walked away from it. You're pursuing like movies now. I know that you're collaborating with Oliver Samuels, which I was like super excited to see because like growing up, I know around the house we'd have some VHS tapes with Oliver, and you know that type of Jamaican comedy. It's not something that we'd find on any Canadian television here. So to see you guys kind of linked up doing that is pretty awesome.
That question is pretty awesome. Let's go back to you, sir. That question is pretty awesome. Will I ever give up comedy? Never, ever, 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 ever. So that's something that is in me. I'll never give up. I know when I said publicly, and I did it, that I was retiring from producing comedy shows anymore. Because what happened was there's a wave that came along in comedy shows, live comedy shows, which people just weren't coming out to. They would come out to their favorites, you know, if they weren't from here, the White Yardies, the Major Hypes, you know what I mean? The people that weren't from here. Meanwhile, I'd be doing the show myself with a live band, charging half the price. And not saying I wasn't funny, like I would bring funny people in, but people in Toronto just started to say, hey, all right, I'll come, maybe I'll come. And I'm like, I can perform with these guys. But I felt like in my own city, I was playing in an away game. That feeling wasn't good. And it wasn't because I checked myself. I'd ask my friends. One thing I do is have honest friends going, is it that I'm not funny? What is it? And they're like, nothing. And I'm like, just give it to me straight. Like, what don't you like? And they're like, no, we love them. I don't know why more people aren't here. So I pulled away from that because there was a lot of energy that I was dispersing towards making comedy shows and decided to put it towards film and television. So I wrote a couple scripts, movie scripts, TV show scripts. I pitched to CBC, Chorus. I've been pitching to a lot of these networks for these TV shows. But this one came through the pandemic. I've always been, if anyone asks, they always ask my influences. And a lot of people say it's Richard Pryor, or they say it's Eddie Murphy. Mine is Oliver Samuels. And Bill Cosby prior to going to jail.
Okay. I was about to say.
I have to put the prior to going to jail because I grew up in an era where Cosby was everything. And like you said, in your house, they were playing. My house was a Christian household. So Cosby could be in my house. And Oliver definitely was in my house. So when I met him at a couple times, but he didn't know that he's like my guy, you know what I mean? But once we started talking and we developed an idea during COVID for this show, Oliver in Charge, it started to fit into place. And when we put the characters in, it was so dynamic. It's definitely something you would never see on TV because he plays the role of my father, but he left my mother at an early age and went to Jamaica, and he had another son. So I have like a stepbrother, and I'm bringing my father back to Canada to live with me. But what's nice about it is my wife is African. She's half Nigerian and she's half Ghanaian. So she's got that fiery part. And, you know, we took influences from, you know, Michelle Obama, as well as, you know, is it Felicia Rashad from Cosby Show?
Yeah.
Yes. We took those influences. So she's a lawyer about to be the head of her firm. So I'm kind of like that husband that just lucked out on a wonderful intellectual woman. And I lucked out. But my dad is like, she lost her dad and she only has her mom. And she wants me to have a relationship with somebody because my mom is gone. My dad is in Jamaica. And she's like, bring him back. So it's kind of bringing him back up and bringing him from that world of Jamaica, the army checking into Canada, and him being a part of my wife who's African, and it's fiery. So my brother-in-law is Trix, who's hilarious, and our timing is great. And we get into all sorts of shenanigans. So you got all of diasporas of what's in there. And what I love the most, and people would think, who's one of your favorite characters? One of my favorite characters is my brother's girlfriend. She's white. she's Nova Scotia. So we got a Karen in the show. And the reason why I say this is because she sponsors him to Canada. And I got to go through the fact that this is my real brother, but I don't really like how he got here. But here's a girl who loves him. And we love the lines that we put into her because she does things like she says, I don't know why I feel the reason to tell on us. And we're like, because you're white. Like, it's really funny with some of the comedy that we put into her. And I know I'm telling you guys stuff, but this one is so funny because it's got the Guess Who's Coming to Dinner scene in episode 8. And her father's coming to meet my father. So I'm kind of teaching my father not to speak with such a Jamaican accent to understand this white man, you know what I mean, that's coming from Nova Scotia to see if they can get married because we want my brother to stay in Canada. Let's be real here. Yeah. And he's coming and we're like, what do we cook? And, you know, my African mother-in-law, she's like, I will want to make fufu or jollof rice, but I can't make it spicy because they can't eat it. And we're going through all of this stuff. And I'm like, no, we're making shepherd's pie. We're making shepherd's pie. And I want him to be comfortable. And she's like, we're asking her, what does your dad eat? She goes, I don't know. And we're like, what is he like? I don't know. She's not giving us any information. We're like, you know everything about everybody's business except for your dad. And he comes in, and this is such a climax in the episode. He comes in, and I'm teaching my dad just to say, hello, you're the father, and not use it in such an accent. So he's got his mouth all twisted. He's like, hello, like he's trying to be Canadian. And the guy comes in out of nowhere, and he's white, and he's like, wow, I'm Reggie. What if I did not? And he's patois. And we're like, what? Because we're so surprised that this white man talks this way. But he was a Jamaican white guy, and he had to do farm work in Nova Scotia. That's how he got this white Nova Scotian daughter. We thought, he's like, no, man, where's the curry goat? And we're like, are you kidding me? But and Oliver's mad because we put him through all this practice to learn how to talk white, and this guy's talking patois. So the writing is on.
That's great, man.
It's exciting. You would all want to watch an episode. It's so funny. My best friend is my Trinidadian neighbor and my income tax guy. He does my taxes, so he does all our financing. That's why the house looks so plush. And we were ready to shoot. Like, I don't think you understand. Like, we were shooting the pilot. Mike knows a friend of ours at Wayne Prabhu's house, which is a mansion in Oakville. So it had that Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, blackish feel to it. Like, we're so ready, but he's in Jamaica, Trix is in the States. Where are we going to shoot? The pandemic, like, crushed everything because we would have been able to shoot the pilot. BET Canada is interested in the show. We want to send it to BET. I think Prime would be interested. I think Netflix would be interested. But how it works right now, and what I'm learning from a business perspective is we should just tape 8 to 10 episodes and get them done. And that way you can sell them. You know what I mean? As opposed to someone like Netflix understanding how this would work. But think about it. Everyone here on the panel would watch it. But everyone in the Caribbean, the entire Caribbean would watch it. Everyone in Nigeria and Ghana would watch it. Everyone in America would watch it. Go ahead, Ross.
I've got to plug that Quelly TV. That, like, I'm not sure. Have you heard of them?
I haven't.
Okay, so it's like Netflix, essentially, like a streaming platform, but it's completely focused on Black people and countries and supporting them. So there's a lot of TV shows and movies that are from, like, Caribbean countries, African countries, South American countries. And so, like, that would be a great platform for you to use.
I'm going to check them out. I'm totally going to check them out. My writer does.
Oh.
Go ahead. And you're going to send me this info.
I can send it for you. Yeah. KWELI TV.
Okay.
Yeah.
They're all picking the right way to go. But right now, I think the best way, and I'm kind of just speaking this into existence. Right now, I think the best way is us to go shoot it. And I think when the pandemic somewhat ends, I think we should all just go to Jamaica for a month and shoot as much episodes as we can, get a big house and shoot it. But then you lose Canadian tax credits. I'm not going to put you guys through the boring part, but you know what I mean? It's a lot of different pieces. Like, if we could have just got it shot here, it would have been perfect and we get it done. But it's going to be a trial process. But I think, like you said, Jordan, it's a winner. It's a winner.
So, you know, you're representing like your race and, you know, Black people in culture. Like, what's that like? Because, you know, Mike said that at the beginning you were maybe apprehensive about, you know, some of the performing and doing some of your routines with white people in the room. Because like I've watched some of your shows and stuff, and I'm like, that could be iffy. So can you talk a little bit about that?
I was so terrified of performing in front of white people that I took a comedy writing course. I was because when I came, it's so weird because we worked in a telecommunications company where I did all the hosting. So it's not that I'm afraid of white people. I hosted every event there. I made people laugh. I just didn't think I was as funny in a crowd that wasn't predominantly colored, simple, and of color. And I was nervous, but I fought the battle of it. And I went to a writing course secretly at Humber to see how I can do it. And
when you say secretly, did you put on a fake mustache and glasses?
I just didn't tell anybody. I was like, and hello. And I went by a government name and I was like, hello, I'm signing up for this course. And I would shut up every class and start from scratch, like, you know, unlearn and relearn and how to do it. And we go through every exercise and I would get an A, an A, an A, an A. And they would be like, why are you here? And I'm like, I confessed to my professor and be like, I'm scared of white people. He's like, what? And he goes, what is the biggest crowd that you performed in front of? And everyone was like, well, I performed in front of 10 people here. And he was like, be honest. And I told him it was 8,000 people at Wilson Amphitheater over there. And he was like, 8,000? And what are you worried about? I go, well, I don't know what to say. And he said, you know what? It's greatest advice he ever gave. He said, do you think people understood Bernie Mac when he first started talking? And I was like, no, I didn't understand Bernie Mac when he first started. He goes, and the people will learn when you're funny, it translates everywhere. You just got to be confident and everyone will learn your language. And I was like, that's it. And from that day, the lights went on. I didn't have to be like, okay, here's a Black joke. Here's a white joke. Here's a Black. I just gave jokes. You know what I mean? And I began to find my voice after a while, like about 5 years in, because I would talk like you talk in the streets. When I got on the stage, I'd be like, wagwan people, wagwan, wagwan. And I was like, and Russell was like, don't talk like that. Talk like you. And then when you're doing a character, talk like that. And I was like, oh, and it made more sense because now you walk into a room and you're like, wagwan people, anyone who doesn't know what that means just turns their head off immediately. But when you're like, hey, everybody, how's it going? I'm Jay Martin, man. Yeah, I come from Jamaican backgrounds. So they're going to expect me to speak in an accent. And once I learned that, I can perform in front of anybody. So
is that before or after Niagara?
Oh, definitely after Niagara.
Tell us about Niagara.
Oh, wow. Okay. It's like Harry Spears is not the only jerk on there. Niagara Falls is awesome. I started comedy, and in the first 6 months, it was like being the first girl in your high school that, you know, came in the second semester and all the guys loved her, because I have had that situation where we're like, who's the new chick? But I was flying. Like, I went from my first show in June to headlining in December. It was like fire. And I was in festivals. And when I went to the Halifax Comedy Festival, they wouldn't even enter me as a new comedian. They were like, he's too good. So my head got big, like really big. And I was like, there's no one who can stop me. You know what I mean? I am Thor or whatever. And, I went to Niagara Falls, and it was like, I'm like, a casino within my first 7 months. Like, who does casinos? And I thought coming in, it'll be Jay Martin at the Casino Niagara. But nah, there was a back room corner where everyone went when you lost money. Like, you just sat in this corner, and they put you in this room in the corner where people are like, I got no more money, I just want to drink. And they were miserable. And I had to do 30 minutes. And there's a clock. There's not even an intro. They're like, get ready for some comedy from this person. There was no intro. Oh. And you go out there and you just talk to a room full of people that, I won't say losers, but they're technical losers because they lost their money. I don't mean they're a bunch of losers, but they lost all their money, and they weren't laughing at nothing. And you had to last 30 minutes. It was great pay. I think it was like almost $2,000 for an hour.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but
I know Mike makes that type of money on his OnlyFans.
That's with the booty shakes, right? Okay, different episode. But I lasted 16 minutes on the first one and like drowned for 15 minutes, which is very hard to do, like to just drown. And then the other guy did the other 30 minutes. And the next show he did like some of my minutes. And the next show I was like, I gotta beat 16. And I got to 21 and I just was like, I can't go no more. And it really brought the reality in that you could suck some nights. Like you can take it in the face. I took it in the face in Niagara Falls. To be honest with you, I was crying like the rivers of the falls. I'm that bad. It was bad. It was bad.
Wow. I know that you mentioned, and I've seen too, that you found your passion like for comedy through loss. And I know that you suffered some personal losses. So can you talk about how those personal losses kind of like, how you process grief and how that helped you to kind of find comedy and be passionate?
Well, to be honest with you, they say it, that most comedians suffer from depression. I would say at least 90% of them suffer from deep depression. Mine came at a very, very early age, and it was my life because at the time, no one in my friends or neighborhood had faced what I faced. I had no peers that I could be like, what are you going through? And so everyone at first, when they got through that, they started to alienate me a little bit. You know what I mean? Not because they didn't like me, because they didn't know what to say. You know what I mean? And I'm not just saying because he's here. Mike was one of those only people that didn't alienate me. Like he was like, how are you going through this? And he'd say, I don't know how you're feeling. Like I can't imagine it, but I'd like to help you. You know what I mean? So they would do things like drive me to the cemetery to visit my mom, you know what I mean, and leave me that space without knowing it and just be like, here's a box of Kleenex, he's back. Like they were really good at that, him and his brother, which I still thank them for. Their whole family was very supportive. But in that hour, like people don't understand, I contemplated suicide daily till the point that I went to my guidance counselor, who was more like a father to me, and he secretly got me into Mr. Myers, he knows, got me a child psychologist. And they didn't even know at school that I was going to see a counselor for grief counseling. You know what I mean? Wow. I didn't even think this existed. So I didn't want people to think I was crazy or nothing, but he got me to a child psychologist, but I internalized a lot of that pain. I even had shingles when I was 18. Who gets shingles at 18? That's like
wow.
18. So the doctor said to me, if I have shingles at 18, the chances are I won't make it to 25. You know what I mean? He says it's just too much, and I had to de-stress. So then the jokes came, and when I told one joke, the crowd just went nuts. There were times like world popular basketball player Bobby Allen called me about 2 months ago, and he was like, I didn't understand. I was a superstar of our high school, dunking, and crowds were cheering when I wasn't playing because they were cheering for you in the audience. Like I was cracking mad jokes in the stands. Like it was like food for me. If I wasn't playing beats, like people would turn, if the game wasn't popular, to me, and I would stand on the top of the bleachers telling jokes down to them. And oh, by the way, there's a game going on. Like he couldn't understand how that happened, but it was such a fever of getting people to feel good, because when they felt good, it was healing me. So I was just like craving. It wasn't
like a reciprocal thing.
Right. It wasn't like I was like attention seeking. Like everyone who knows me, it was never, oh, there he goes again. What a loser. There was something unique about it that only came from when you laughed. I felt good. You laughed, and then those demons that were like, you know what I mean, take your own life, would leave every day when I felt better than for myself, if it makes any difference.
So it sounds like comedy kind of like saved you too, man. Because like in our community, I know like when you tell someone that you might be going through mental health issues or like you need help, there's like a stigma about that, right?
Correct.
And like to hear that you process grief that way, like what would you say to other people that might be going through like a hard like circumstance? Like what advice would you offer? Oh,
great question. I mean, advice I gave, because I had it early and then I had it often. Like Mike knows, my mother's death wasn't even the first one. My brother died when I was 12. My mother died at 16. Her funeral was on my sweet 16th birthday. It just kept getting worse. And I was just like, what is happening? And the losses started piling up, but nobody experienced them early. So what you're saying is, I became somewhat of a grief counselor for those that got through it without even knowing, you know what I mean? And what I would give advice to anybody going through it is, especially if it's in the case of someone who you love that's lost, and people lose people all the time, is that what makes it worse is it leaves a gaping hole in your heart when someone you love dies. But what we do as human beings, when we see a hole, the first thing we do is grab some dirt and throw it in the hole, trying to fill it. But the hole of losing someone can never be filled. It's like a bottomless hole. So you filling it is just taking you to a place of deeper and deeper depression. I like to use an example of calling it like an amputee. You lose a finger, it's gone. You're going to forget that the finger is not there, but you try to live with 4 fingers. You understand what I mean? And it's not to be forgotten. It's not to be hidden behind a glove. You know what I mean? It's to be seen, hey, that guy has 4 fingers. Hey, that guy has no mother. You understand what I mean? But look at him. He's moving on. He's actually playing volleyball. He's like the guy on the Houston Rockets, Gerald Green, who made the NBA with 4 fingers. You know what I mean? I mean, that's like impossible, but he's winning dunk contests because he's going against all odds. He could have been like, I was going to be great, and then I lost my finger. My career's
That's
gone.
it. I'm done. But no.
Right. And look what happened to him. You know what I mean? He's still a very serviceable basketball player. So that's what I kind of tell people to do, because if they try to fill that hole, which is a natural thought process to do, and I think that's a demon process because you can never fill it. That's my advice for them.
Wow, Jay, that is incredible, man. Wow. I mean,
you also help when people are in loss, because I know a few years ago when I lost my aunt, and just the things you did for us, like even all my cousins, when you had a show, you said, bring everybody to the show, and everybody was there. It's like just. I think back at the friendship that we have and kind of get a little bit emotional, but, just the things that you do to help people and the way that it affects people. So,
I can definitely speak on that. I think, it's been a month. It's Black History Month. I've been blessed. I think I've had like 23 shows this month because it's been a lot of schools I've spoken at, companies. And I think what it is the fact that comedy is medicine. And as a comedian that I am, I feel like, in a way, all of the time, parents in the Caribbean background, South Asian, African, they're always like, you have to be a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer. You know what I mean? It's not very many that get to be a comedian. And in my state, I do feel successful, but I think of myself as a laugh doctor. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
If you can feel better about yourself, you forgot the moment that you're in, and where does it classify in the realm of doctors? But I consider myself a laugh doctor. So when you say, get the whole family out, I'm doing the same thing with the amputee. I never want you to forget your aunt, Mike, and what she meant to you guys. But I want for that moment that you're looking up at the stage and laughing for an hour and a half or 2 hours that I have your attention, that you absolutely forgot a little bit about that grief, that pain. You know what I mean? And you walked out of there feeling a little bit better than when you came in. You understand what I mean? And that's why I did that for your family. But I do a lot for people because it's great. It's honorable. But they don't understand that my entire business and my whole being, my whole career, and anything I've accomplished has been based on them. If more entertainers would understand that their being celebrities comes from the people that care about them, they would be more, careful with how they treated them. You get what I mean? So all the stuff that I do is not essentially in the now. Like I get Mike's brother will come, you're too nice, you're too kind. Like, I get it all the time, but it's not because I want to be the guy that says, oh gosh, you're so kind, you're so nice. I want to be the guy that gives back to my fans, because I'm so grateful at the fact that I can be 50 years old without a day job and I'm doing just fine. And that would never happen if the fans that I have or people that support my career weren't involved. I would be unemployed and what they call a waste youth at 50.
So have the Maltonites really helped you with that? Because like from what I gathered from Mike and and we've had other Maltonites on the show, it seems that like there's a really tight-knit community. Would you say that they really help push you off the ground?
Yeah, they are. we talk about it, and anyone that's not from there, I'm going to use a joke I use to show you the comparison. I do this joke where I talk about Jamaicans, right? And I go to a crowd and I ask, is anybody from here? I name like 9 places, and then I leave Jamaicans for last because I know they're going to be like, bruh, 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 bruh. They're going to be like getting out. Yeah, always wanted to be like the show-offs. And I always say in there, I go, people that aren't Jamaican, I know what you're thinking. You're going, there goes the Jamaicans again. But it's true. That's how it is with these Malton guys. Like when we speak about it, everyone's like, oh, there they go again. These guys from this little town, like they're losers. That's just a little more order. But what we know they're coming from there is when we leave there, anyone who leaves there notices that relationship amongst people isn't the same. And maybe that's what's drawing me to what I said earlier, and I draw to with Ross saying that it does happen. Because we grew like this, we find it odd that people aren't like that, but we're the weird ones. You ever see that in that kind of book where the wild things are? We're the weird ones, and you're like, what's going on? It's all great there. We're weird because people don't usually say, I'm still friends with my friend from grade 2. Or people don't usually say, my friend from high school, we still get along. We talk all the time every day. Like when I went to university, they were like, you still talk to them? Like grade 2? But all of us still do it. Like it's not like anyone does it. So we all still do it from that time. And when the ones that fell off, we still kind of, check for them, but it's not normal. It's not normal. And we all started to assume maybe it's something in the water, why we get along so well and why we're like this. You know what I mean?
Fell off, but they're still in the WhatsApp group.
The WhatsApp group. Yeah, they fell off. But yeah, so we hear friends, and my friends, when my friends that aren't from where we're from come, I got to give a quick example. When I turned 50, it was during the pandemic, but it was during that break where you could still have people in a room, I think 50 people. And I had a birthday party with 50 people, and the room had 50 people, but if 40 people were from Malton and 10 were not, the 10 that weren't were looking at us like we were nuts. It's like Malton is a church, not a denomination. It's one church. Hi, Brother John. Hi. Like it was all one church. So they would give references, and my friends would be like, they did what? Like, I gotta say it. Like our friends do things that other people don't do, and you've been hearing the Malton thing, and he's saying straight out of Malton, but they do. And to other people, it'd be a surprise. Recently, I lost a very, very close cousin. Like this one shattered me because I've had a lot of losses in my family. First cousins and uncle and aunties in the year of 2020 to 2021, we've lost 10. So
oh my goodness.
Really a madhouse. Like my whole family is like, what's going on? Is there a plague? And that's on my father's side. And on my mother's side, I lost a cousin that used to come up, and it's funny because as a kid, him and Mike used to do backflips together. And I got a call, and I was like, it's pandemic, and I got to go to Atlanta to go see. I can't not be there, even though it's a pandemic. I was ready to be like, do I got to take this vaccine? Even though I was like, whoa, vaccine. But I was like, for him, I would have taken anything to be there. You know what I mean? To be his pallbearer, to stay at the funeral and do what I can do to help my family. And my friends knew how much he meant to me. You would not believe this, Jordan. They were sending me money for plane tickets. I didn't need it. They were sending me money to buy gifts down there, dropping me to the airport. Like everyone, no one, you know how you have those friends that are like, don't go to the States. Everyone was like, so when you leaving? And I was like so shocked because everyone was like, you can't go travel in a pandemic. Everyone was like, no, what he means to him, Jay has to go. And I didn't ask for money, you know what I mean? But they were all like, what can I give? What can I do to help you through this? That's not normal friends, you know what I mean? So
yeah.
That's why we kind of live or die for Malton. It gets deep. You kind of wish you rented a basement apartment there for a month so you can be right, Jordan? Right?
I'm like, yeah, it wouldn't be so bad.
Just a basement apartment.
I feel like I haven't lived in, so I lived in Malton for 3 years.
Oh, good.
And I feel like I missed out on what you guys were able to have this camaraderie, this village. And I was like, I should probably just skimmed through this whole like village of people I could have carried with me. So,
I thought
and then I was
where Beyonce was from. I thought good things come from Malton. I don't know how. Is your fiance from Malton?
Is she? I don't know.
He wasn't Beyonce.
If she
there.
if she is, Mike knows her.
Hey, these guys think about everybody, but it's just our friends from Malton.
No, Mike, you know everybody. This stop. That's nonsense. You know everybody there is.
So Jay, I was watching one of your interviews just before this, and you were interviewing with George Strombolopoulos. Sorry, I probably just messed up his last name.
Strombo. They just call him Strombo.
And I was like, Mike, he's from Malton too. So I was like, the Maltonness, the continuity of that theme is just prevalent in our podcast. So I just thought that was cool.
I love it. And George is amazing, like amazing. He lived on my street and we played street hockey together. But that interview that I did with him, he was just so, it was like a roller coaster. It was so easy to talk to him. It wasn't that there was cameras or national television. It was just George, the guy from the block. And he's that cool. He's that great. He's awesome. I think he's going to be the one that stops me from getting a street named after me in Malton. There cannot be a J. Martin Street without a George Strombo Street. It just can't happen. You can't host Hockey Night in Canada and not have your own street. While in Brampton, they're giving away stars and streets like it's water. I don't understand. Only one that got anything is Paul Coffey, right? He got a.
Oh yeah,
did he get a street?
Yeah, he got a
star.
Arena.
Yeah.
So Jay, you've touched on like you mentioned how the pandemic kind of like messed things up with the show. You know how it affected travel. How has it really changed your approach to organizing events? Because I know that you've had to utilize some other different technologies to kind of still throw events, and this podcast we like to explore technology. So could you comment on that too?
Hey, before you do that, comment on how we used to do macking compared to what you would have to do now.
How to used to do what again?
How we used to do macking, like with Marmel and with the flyers and all that. To what you have to do now for a show, right? So from archaic to digital.
Well, I'm gonna go to his question, but yours, yeah, it was so hood, it was so street, it was so steal the photocopier at work and make copies of the flyer when no one's looking and cut them in half with the cutter and try to tell people to come out to parties. So primitive. The whole changes that happened is I stopped advertising. I learned the hard way. I would go to parties and advertise for comedy shows and watch girls step on the paper on the way out. They'd be like, okay, whatever. Just throw them off. I'm like, what are you guys doing? Like, I spent money on those flyers and you're throwing them to the ground. And then I realized you went to a party to party. Just because I'm going out to a party doesn't mean I want to sit in a comedy show. And my feelings used to get hurt because those flyers cost a lot of money. But I started saying, stop advertising to people that aren't like-minded in that way. So I would go to poetry shows or dinner theaters or those kind of to get my customers to come to comedy. And then once I got them in the comedy, you should see, man, I was like, next month, if you guys come back, because I wasn't trying to get new customers because it was hard. People go to a comedy show and they love it. You know what they do after? They're like, that was a great show. We should do this again sometime. No one says, let's do this again next month. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We should do it again sometime. And I was like, why are we in the sometime category? You know what I mean? If we go to a club, they're not gonna be like, that was a great club night. We should do it again sometime. We go into the club next Thursday. They plan the next club date. They don't go sometime. So in the middle of it, then I'd have someone that would come to the first show, the third show, the fifth show. You know what I mean? And I need you monthly at each show. So when you say coming into technology, I really took a step back and I was like, how are we gonna do this? Like, this is when SERP just started. We're like, how are we going to survive? What's going to happen? I can't perform. And even when I had my September ones, I used to have a Sunday outdoor event, used to allow us to do that. And I'm very proud to say I was able to do two things in a pandemic that I don't think many people did. There was a time we could do that kind of Dave Chappelle like show outside. So I put together a package where you get your 2 T-shirts, you get food and drink, so nobody's going back and forth. You know what I mean? They deliver it to your seat, and 2 T-shirts, 2 food and drinks, and the show tickets. And I did something incredible. I charged $130 for the ticket, for the pair of tickets. And people were buying them like crazy. What I realized in the marketing concept is that everyone's like, okay, that's that's $65 a ticket, but I get food, I get drinks, and I get a t-shirt. So what ended up happening is we ended up selling out 2 shows in 5 hours, which was crazy. But people were so tired of not having entertainment that they came on a wonderful night outside. And I was like, God, just don't make it rain.
Yeah.
Which happened. God was like, watch this joke. And he made it rain the second show. But then we kind of took it inside and spaced out everybody and we were good. But that was one thing I did. And the second thing was great. This guy contacted me and everything's for a negative, but some are for a good. He contacted me and goes, we're going to do your Trinidad versus Jamaica Mother's Day show virtually. And I thought, great. And it was fantastic. That's how I met Oliver. That's how I got, everybody said yes except Major Hype, but that's okay. He's a big star. But everybody said yes, and it was great. We had 20 comedians. We filmed it. We did it like how we would do it now, but we were early. Like it was May. We all locked down March. By May, I had a show online. And the guy that was putting it together on a live stream show, and this is where technology comes in, and this is where Mike was like, you should have called me. But
is that your mic voice?
Yeah. Well, it was a bit high, right? You should have.
That was high.
But I have to make it different from my voice for it to be believable. And I kept telling him, what's going on. And we started to go on sale because we do it Mother's Day. And everyone who has a mother or had a mother loves a mother. It's usually the case. And I'm like, we're going to get a lot of sales. And he was like, yeah, sure. And I'm like, Thursday, someone called me and goes, the tickets aren't working on sale. They weren't on sale. Like, he goes, it's working. But he did a interface where you had to sign up on his website. They had to send you an email. Then in the email, there was a password. You need to come over here and enter back the password. And when you enter back the password, then you get the code. And then the code would let you watch the show. But when you watch the show, you have to find the show on the website, which you should have just put my show.
Oh, man, that's brutal.
First. Now we're talking to people who have mothers that are 70 and 80 years old, and you're not going to your mother's house because it's COVID and you don't want her to get sick. How is she supposed to get on this site?
Yeah.
So on top of that, I said, how much can your server hold? And he's like, well, how much it can hold? It can hold 1 million people. I'm like, okay, that's cool. That's perfect. But he didn't turn on the server to hold 1 million people. So game day comes and 150,000 people come to his site at 12 o'clock. Because England now is 6 hours ahead. They're waiting till 6 o'clock to watch this show and crashes his servers. For the day, 300,000 people came to his website. Remember, this is May. It's a pandemic. We have nothing to do. It's Mother's Day. All check marks. I'm like, I'm rich because it was $4.95 US, which translates to about $7 Canadian at that time, which would have been 7 times 300,000. I think someone can do some math there. That's a whole lot of money.
Roz can do math in her head really quickly. She's
a genius.
Roz was like, okay, that's this.
yeah. That's a number. She's just so embarrassing. So no worries.
Right. So that's how much we lost on Mother's Day. And you know how much people got to see it? 300. That's how bad the site was.
Oh, man.
So from 300,000 that came to the site for no other reason. I'm not even going to say the site because I don't want to give them an inch more of advertisement. For no other reason but to watch this show, buying a subscription for their parents. Then he had to do refunds, 300 out of 300,000. Then he's like, we'll do it again for Father's Day. I'm like, nobody cares about their dad.
Yeah.
So
Well, you have this year.
yeah.
And I did just do the math, and it's like almost like 1.5 million US.
Exactly.
Which is like insane. I'm so sorry for you. Like I'm hurting knowing that you lost that. Like
Carefully. I was distraught. Like I was, and then we had a follow-up meet, and I'm like, things went pretty well. I'm like, pretty well? Like, could you murder someone through Zoom? Because if I could, I would have choked it. And I'm trying to, Jordan, you know what the part I'm trying to, and I'm saying this because you asked this. The light in this is I would have never been able to create Oliver in Charge without this, because we got to talk. He was like so shocked by this. We got to talk. I got to sign him to a contract for 3 years and development of this show. So I'm praying, Roz, that I make 1.5 million US of Oliver so that this whole circle of God can be real. And I can be like, see, you too can fail and be rich again. Damn. You just made me hurt again.
So I know you're doing Minority Report 2 over Zoom. How, like, that must be strange to, like, also perform with Zoom as well, because, like, how do you gauge audience feedback? Like, how does that work?
We did it every week, Minority Report, and it's like, what does he call it? Different POVs for, I don't know the acronyms, but we did
Point
that.
of view, I think.
What did you say it was?
Point of view?
Yes, point of view, but he has point of view, people of color for POC. Yeah. So point of view from people of color. And we are like a Saturday Night Live sketch group. And we do skits and we do funny jokes. But like you said, over Zoom, it was difficult. It was like learning. But because we did it every single week, we became more prone to how to use it and how to make it happen and do characters and dress up like characters. And the feedback became our chat. You know what I mean? Though they were muted, the chat was always moving. We could see people be like, oh my gosh, hilarious. Like, it was really fun. So that's what we've been developing. So now we do it monthly. And it's getting better. We're looking like Saturday Night Live meets in living color. Like, it's really well done. I think, even though I'm only one of the members of the Jacksons, and I'm not Michael, I'm more like Jermaine or Tito. Like, I take it personal, whatever. I'm not as influential in that as they are, but I think, it's great because we meet every week, we polish up the jokes, and we're recording them like you guys are, and we're going to chop it up and try to pitch them to a CBC or anybody to do a kind of sketch show that has this. But I think it's really funny. Like, and we get guests next month. Shameless plug. We got Dean Edwards, and he was on Saturday Night Live. He does great impersonations of Denzel Washington and Cat Williams. So him being a character is going to be amazing next month. We're going to do a court scene, which is hilarious, where he plays Denzel Washington as a lawyer. And
that sounds good already.
It's going to be crazy. And it's just fun to do during this time. You know what I mean? You guys are on Zoom now, and you're like, what are we doing? But it's so much fun to be able to put this stuff together and have people enjoy it. I just wish more people got to enjoy it, because when you do an episode and only 50 people see it and you've been working on the show, I want more people to see it. But it is what it is. It's a business venture with us, but we're doing it not for the money right now. It looks like I have a lot of investments in these projects. I just want them to come at bay. The movie aspect, I'm going to just go into it really quickly. I've written a movie called Destination Wedding, which is really funny. It's about me being a comedian and finding love later in life. And my wife saying, I love to find a wife character that's bigger, better than me, because I think, like so many times in TV and movies, we kind of just stereotype her as the wife, and I hate that. I really hate that. So I rather be the guy that has the woman that makes me a better person, because truthfully in life, my wife does make me a better person. Like, nobody knows my wife. They think she's
Heather.
I know, shout out to her. No one thinks she's my wife. She's like Snuffleupagus. They never see her, they never hear about her, but she's
Yo, this guy called his wife Snuffleupagus.
Well, we kept talking about her when they first started dating. He kept talking about this girl and how she's so beautiful and she's the perfect wife and everything, and he kept talking about her. But it was a new girl. We didn't know her, and then she lived in Malton. I was like, of course. You were all, what? Where did she come from? And, eventually we met her.
You'll let a good girl in Malton walk by and you don't jump on it.
Yeah, you didn't tell anybody.
Sure. Yeah, I kept that part a secret. But yeah, working these projects, like you kind of get these people that are keeping you going, and she kind of keeps me going. So I'm working on this movie, as I was saying, and my wife and I are getting married, but she wants me to stop doing comedy and be more responsible. I go to meet her father to get a job, but I'm late. I sleep in on my last day of comedy, and I'm late for the meeting. And he just keeps telling me and that's the reason the whole Steve Harvey thing came into play. because I wrote this movie to give to Steve Harvey so that it could be Think Like a Man 3 or J Like a Man 1. And he would play my father-in-law to be, and he was just not having it. Like, he was like, I don't like this guy. He's a clown. And I mess up, and I go to a bachelor party, and these guys have a bachelor party, the Malton type of bachelor party, guys. I'm like, woo, woo. I'm like, guys, calm down. And in the morning, I didn't want anything to do with it, but in the morning, I was like, man, I got some great friends. So some of the things you hear me talk about, they transpire in the movie. And in the morning, I'm like, okay, let's get our hair cut. We were supposed to be at the barber to line us up by like 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning. But I just want to say, these videos here show that you guys are the greatest friends a guy could ever have. But the videos are of the bachelor party. But I was like, okay, bridal party group. But I sent it to everybody who is coming to the wedding. So everyone who's coming to the wedding gets to see, do the chick, do the bread. And the father is looking at it going, okay. So obviously I get left at the altar. And it's like crazy. But the night before, or the week before I actually have the bachelor party, I have a show on my last comedy show, and I'm taped at the comedy show. But what I don't know is someone like Jimmy Fallon sends a representative to that show, and I blow up. You understand what I mean? While being depressed. And that's the part I wanted George Stromanopoulos to play, so that it's more of a Canadian movie. And George is my guy. Like, Fallon's not. So George is like, how did you manage to lose your wife and become a superstar at the same time? The movie's really engaging. And then I meet Indian kind of Kim Kardashian. She's like the Kardashians, and she's an Indian girl, and I fall for her, but it's like two celebrities falling for each other. So I bring the diaspora of the Indian background, South Asian background, in that I know so much about, being from Malton. You've heard it 25 times, but I know so much about it. And now I'm with an Indian girl, and we see my ex-girl, which no one has seen her, and the whole jealousy thing happens. So we have a destination wedding, and I won't ruin the end, but all sorts of shit happens at that destination wedding.
Was the destination in India?
I wish it was. It's in the Caribbean somewhere.
Then Jordan could see the elephants that he keeps asking me about.
The elephant, well, yeah, she goes all out. Like, we have, like, there's a Bhangra dance-off on a beach between dancehall men and Bhangra dance.
And if you did a traditional Indian wedding, you would be showing up on a horse. So I don't know if you...
Exactly. It's in the script. Did you write it? The Rasta man that's supposed to get a horse is bringing a donkey. And it's hilarious because the Indian people are not happy with this at all. So I wanted Russell to be in the movie, to be my supposed new brother-in-law, but he kind of said, all I want him to do is a cameo and not show up. But there's a lot of funny things that happens because the Indian girl gets to get physical comedy done to her. Like, she has a shrimp allergy, or she gets bitten by a stingray or a jellyfish. And we all know if you get stung by a jellyfish, the only thing that helps it is being peed on. And the Rasta man is peeing on her from like Malton. Like, it's so far. And she's like, oh my God, oh, it feels so good. Like, it's so funny. Like, I mean, I know I'm dispersing everything, but it's Mike. He has me pouring it all out. But the script to me is a solid script. You know what I mean? So to put all of that together, I've been writing. So you asked the question, what are you doing in this time? I'm not lying to you. I have 4 movie scripts, 4 sitcom scripts completed, and we just want to pitch right now. And it's just the right person to get it. Whether you're going to go to Destination Wedding, Oliver in Charge, I have an animated movie I've written. Like, you just keep putting out these ideas and hoping to catch something. So maybe. So how can a younger person, or just anybody like from the community, like a Black, Indigenous person of color, what would your advice be for wanting to get into the comedy industry or entertainment industry as a whole? I'm going to start comedy because comedy is what I do best, and I do. I suggest, I had a question, someone asked me this even in children. I was like, do shows in your house. Give the person who's doing it a deadline, like how I had one from Reggie Mike. They gave me a deadline that I would have to perform for 2 weeks, and they just invited a room full of people. So that pressure to perform for your friends, which are your friends, is the least amount of pressure, but do it. Like, so anyone that you know that's having advice from a comedic standpoint, tell them that you're going to tell all your cousins or 20 of their friends that you're performing at a certain time, so that that person doesn't back it up, like say, forget it. I remember even Dean, my family, Dean was like, hey man, you gonna be all right with this? I'm like, I have no choice. Everyone's coming. Like, and we live up to a high expectation. So I would say that to them. For the entertainment field, this is the best time because there's never been a time in Canadian history and entertainment where people are demanded by a mandate to at least look at the content involving people of color. Do you know what I mean? And it wasn't until this George Floyd's death, brutal murdering, did we actually realize that, hey, wait a minute, like, we really don't have much of it. And we've been content with that as Canadian people. And we are a little too kind, too accepting of these things. And we got to be a little more going, hey, like, no. And I don't see it yet. I see it in commercials a lot. A lot of the commercials I see on TV have influence of people of color, but I don't see it in television. And I'm hearing that it's happening. I know there's a lot of BIPOC products of acting, hiring actors of color, but I'm not seeing a lot of, what we should be seeing. And I don't mean George Floyd had to die for us to get a movie out, but it's a shame that George Floyd has to die for us to get a movie out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's a shame. It's a shame. It's a shame. We live in a country where everything belongs. I remember Syrians marching downtown for their protests. When people are coming from Middle Eastern countries, we're boldly helping them. When SARS came and the diseases came on, our mayor was the first one to go on TV and say, please support these businesses. You know what I mean? So why do people of color not have the same, tool?
Yeah.
To them? Like, why aren't we hearing him say, please support? Like, where's that coming? Where's that? And why are we last? Why? And I'm not just saying blacks, you know what I mean? I'm saying all people of color, you know what I mean? It falls in a huge dimension to what they're not even aware of. And look, the train track incident where the Native Indians were blocking the train line. They're like, that's in Vancouver. No, but
that was here.
It's here.
Yeah, it's here.
So why is it that it has to be a violent protest before you just treat us regularly? So until I can wake up and see if it's not a Jay Martin show, and I'm not even one that has to be like, it has to be my show. I just want to see another show besides kicking my hair on TV for 10 plus years that has an influence of people like me who can speak. So yeah, we pitched Oliver in Charge, and it may be a little too heavy for some in Canada, but I'm not waiting for that show to be seen in Canada. I think the whole world can appreciate that show. But I got your shows that are Canadian content that you would like. If you want, we have movies. Jerry Crow's a movie that me and John Paul worked on that's all shot in Winnipeg that involves a lot of influences of urban life going into non-urban life. But it's just movies that we keep writing. So cut a long story short, anybody that's in the entertainment field, if you don't come out of this pandemic, I'm not even going to say one time, I'm saying 10 times better than when you went into it, you have no excuse. Because all the time where we didn't have time to write a book, we didn't have time to work on our piece, you do have that time. Stop it. Because you're not driving anywhere. You're not spending 2 hours in traffic. You're not you can barely go out and buy groceries. You're not even going out to dinner because you can't.
So, Ruby, I know that you had a question, and then Roz, I saw you put your hand up too. So we'll go to you two, and then Jay, we need you to settle a debate for us before we wrap, because there's something going on that we need you to settle.
Jay, a couple of things. So do you see the same thing for stand-up comedians? Because when I go to live stand-up shows, if you go to some place like Second City, it's the diversity, I wouldn't say is there as much as some of the underground local stand-up comedian shows that happen. Do you see the same happening there, the evolution of the diversity? And then just on your last point, stepping up and taking the time to craft your art, because now we're all sitting at home, but now we have other mediums like social media, Instagram, YouTube, that allows people to kind of present themselves and to showcase and highlight their craft and take the stage for themselves, where previously they weren't given that stage, right?
Well, wonderful question. You almost answered it yourself. It was beautiful because the concept of Second City, you got to remember where it's derived from. You know what I mean? The entire original cast of Second City have been moved on to be some of the greatest Canadian actors of all time. So the road in which we we tend to cross as Canadians, unfortunately, is a road that's followed by a path that someone else has created. So here we are creating this path and going to Second City. And what ends up with us from a comedic standpoint, there are people of color in Second City, but Second City also demonstrates a part of comedy that is sketch comedy. And sketch comedy amongst people of color is a little bit less because they haven't seen the road outside of, to me, in Living Color and Saturday Night Live. But Saturday Night Live is a predominant white concept, you know what I mean, run by a Jewish organization, which allows these people to say, okay, I might be of that character, and I'm going to go that road. So the reason why you don't see a lot of people of color in Second City, I think that's the reason. And it's sketch. I think more of us are in stand-up comedy. But to answer the latter part of your question, that has been incredible. The aspect of going to social media for means to entertain is a great tool. And don't get me wrong, as a comedian who did live shows, we first saw it as our nemesis. They're like, look at those YouTube comedians. Look at them. They have no idea. Like, they suck. It's everything. Like, we hated them when they first came out. But it's a great platform. The only problem is that people started, the TV network started to use them to pit us against each other. And I'm going to tell you how. They would be like, oh, great show, Jay Martin. Fantastic. How many followers do you have on YouTube? And I'm like, there's no one on YouTube that can make you guys laugh like these 3 movies and television shows that I have. It's just not there. So why does this kid who has 1 million followers on YouTube, and tell me when they've translated to become movie stars? But our networks were using that as key points. You got to get your numbers up before we can pay $1.5 million per episode to give to a black show. We got to know that it works. You know what I mean? Which sucks. So now I love it. Yeah, exactly. So what I do love is the fact that now people are trying to transition that, Ruby, into letting their content come out. You know what I mean? You got Brandon Gomez, who is no longer with CP24 for whatever reason. I think it was because, from what I'm hearing in the background, there were complaints that he was too urban.
I hate that word too. I just want to throw that word in the garbage. It makes me so mad.
It sucks. I'm going to say straight, it sucks and swallows. It's the worst word ever. But basically, yeah, I said it. Now you're going to realize how much I can't stand it.
Uh-oh, Roz is going to get you. Roz is going to get you.
I'm sorry. But I'm saying it's just terrible because that's what we use the words, but it's what they identify as, but it's not true. But yeah, that's what I heard, but he's on YouTube now. You know what I mean? And I think he should be on another network, or I would have done it a little differently. I'm not dissing YouTube, but I would have went to, even if I had to go to CHCH, which is one of those cable stations, and get ads to put my own show on regular television. So everyone who could watch CP24 could watch him. I think he should have done it that way. But that's the case of the future. But I do like your question, Ruby. I'm not in love with putting all my movies and shows on YouTube. I want to get real money for it. And not saying you can't get money, but YouTube, I hear, only pays you per 100,000 views. And that's the first paycheck, which I think is just way too many people to have to find it before you get paid. I like money.
And that's a perspective I've never even thought about, pitting the YouTuber against the people that have been in the industry trying to work their way up. So I'm a living experience of having that told to me.
I mean, I went into a pitch room, I pitched another TV show idea, and to see the people in the pitch room crying, like one woman was crying with laughter. They hugged and kissed me like coming out of the room, like, I've got a TV show. I was like, you've got to be kidding me. Like, nailed it. And when I met them up, they're like, we're going to pass on your show. And, you know, maybe you need some more followers. And I was like, you've got to be kidding me. Like, you know what I mean? And then they started giving me examples of some comedians that I should work with that are in social media, that are doing well in social media. Like, call him in. And I'm like, but he's not. He has nothing of the show value. Like, he has nothing. Him being in here with me calling him just because you told me to. Will I get a show if he's here? Like, that just doesn't even make any sense. And I even went as far as to put him on one of my live shows And I won't lie to you, Mike, I was getting texts from Drew Dazzle going, get this guy off the stage. He's not funny. You know what I mean? And I'm not going to say his name, but they hated him. And I mean, this dude won money as a comedian because he was a fan favorite of those cliquey people that wanted it, and he had YouTube followings. You know what I mean? I'm not saying he's not funny. He is funny. But
it's not for your project.
Yeah, his brand, when he came live, I was like, okay, come over here. They're telling me to work with you. Come over here. And they were like, I was getting texted, get this guy off stage. So,
Roz, I know you had your hand up. You wanted to just jump in.
Oh, yeah. So before you mentioned that you can have shows that are like Canadian funny, as opposed to the other style that you have, which I'm assuming is just you. And I wish that we could stop differentiating between Black funny or Jamaican funny or immigrant funny and Canadian funny, because like I'm Canadian and it's funny to me.
Right.
A lot of people are first generation, second generation, or whatever, and our experiences are similar. Yeah. My parents, and so for me, like the things that you've been saying have been funny. Right. And so yeah, like it is Canadian funny because I'm Canadian.
Funny is funny.
I love that. I love that. And I wish you were at my pitch meeting. I wish I could have just said, insert Roz here and say what I said, because that's how I felt. Do you understand what I mean? But let's take a quick example at what we watched on Kinky My Hair. If we did, that wasn't their script. They fought them every which way because someone in the room was like, I don't understand that. I don't understand that. If I don't understand that as a common this, that, no one's going to understand it. And let's be clear and honest with ourselves as far as they're concerned. I hate it. I'm going to say the U word again, but the urban community extends from Oshawa to Hamilton. When we're talking about this broad countryscape, there's so many people that if you're going to play something on a show like CBC, there's people in, you know what I mean, Yellowknife that watch it. You know what I mean? They have to feel connected. So I get you. I agree 100%. To them, in their defense, like I said to Ruby, they use things in their defense to be able to not say yes to your show. Because if your show is not successful, an executive producer loses their job. It's just simple. Your show bombs. I'm an executive producer. I've lost my job. So do I know that your show is going to make it? The fact that I'm crying is great, but am I willing to put my job on it? And what we should be asking, Roz's bigger question is, why is your job in jeopardy?
Yeah, because then you can't have that room that freedom to bring on new and interesting things. It's all stifled. That doesn't make any sense.
Right. You took the chance on Kim's Convenience, and it worked, and it makes you tons of money. It wasn't really a chance you took on Schitt's Creek because it had Eugene Levy and all these other stars in it. But I know the guy who sold Schitt's Creek to them, and they gave him a little bit of trouble, but he's like, dude, do you know what I'm working with? So how am I supposed to use an example? Do you get what I mean? Yeah. So I love what you're saying. I hate being Canadian funny, but I had to give them something to show that I can answer to the person who's in Yellowknife to understand this show. And I hate it. I hate the fact that it looks that it might be dumbing down, but I was able to honestly to create a show called Jay's Crazy Life, which was I went corporate, Mike. I went back to my Bell corporate days, and I was a corporate rep, you know what I mean? And I worked my way up, and there was a white guy that kind of just made me lose. You know, he stole all my clients and all my concepts, you know what I mean? And my parents inherited The Real Jerk, you know what I mean? The Real Jerk restaurant, because my father was an American who was playing music, and he came up for Caravana and fell in love with my Caribbean mom. And they had me, and I worked my way up corporately. So I knew Drake and I knew all of these guys in the business, but there was a guy always stealing my ideas there. And now I have to make the restaurant where my dad plays, the owner was this rich white guy, but he died and left him this restaurant. So now the concept comes in as weekly guests with a restaurant in the day, a nightclub in the night with performers of all natures, Canadian content, and I'm the guy putting the pieces together. You know what I mean? So those concepts, you're hearing it, you're smiling, Roz, which I really need to hear, because once you're smiling, the world's a better place, because we know you got to be happy with it. Once you're happy with it, my point was there was nothing in there that'd be like, I didn't understand. You understand what I mean? Yeah. So I rewrote everything that you could say I didn't understand. And you were dying with laughter, because the reason why they were crying, I'm going to tell you right now, is they were deporting my chef because these guys from immigration were coming and my chef made the best chicken. Like the line down the street in Bayview was for this chicken from this chef. And I wanted to have someone to marry him. We tried my platonic friend to marry him. We tried to do anything. And then the guys came in and ordered chicken from us. And they were like, yeah, too bad he's not going to be here next week. But they were talking about someone from their workplace. But you know, the miscommunication, I'm thinking, oh my God, they're going to deport him next week. So I go to him, Everton or whatever his name is, and be like, hey, I got bad news, man. You're not going to be here anymore. You're going to have to go home. And he's like, what? I go, yeah, immigration says in a week you're going to have to go home. He's like, what? And we're like, yeah. He goes, I'm going back to kitchen in Waterloo. And we're like, what? And he goes, yeah, I just put on this accent, Rasta, the tooth thing, because I figured it worked. And we're like, you were born here. So that's when they spit out their drinks. They were crying. And I was like, they were hugging me. Oh my God, hilarious. Because the whole scene was set, you know what I mean? And we still didn't get the show. Like, it's just so hard. I don't think you guys understand what it's like to put 2-3 months into a pitch and go to it. But you just got to keep getting these no's and hope for the yes. But there's a lot, as I've given you guys dynamics of TV shows, movies, and that's just like,
comedy, even, yeah.
You know what I mean? So
settle this debate for us, though.
Okay, good.
You have to settle this debate for us because you brought up chicken, and you know we've been going back and forth. So you know when it comes to curry chicken, and you know, I'm partial to having it with rice and peas because I like rice and peas, but Roz is firmly on the white rice side. So how do you feel is the best way to approach curry chicken in terms of rice?
Wait. Before you answer, Jay, it's more than just white rice.
Oh,
I actually believe that it should be roti.
Okay.
That's what I believe.
Okay, relax with the roti. Stick to the rice.
It has to be roti skin with the curry chicken. But go ahead, Jay.
I'm going to be very honest with you. We had this debate the night before last night. We had this debate Friday night on my kitchen table. I only had 3 other friends come over. He knows them. The Dread was here. Carrie was here, Keith and Leon. So we're sitting around the table and someone said the same thing. And then the response was, who eats curry chicken with rice and peas? The reason being, I get that. The reason being is I think it's too much, Jordan. I am a white rice on curry chicken kind of guy. Don't get me wrong. Rice and peas is nice. If you said, I've seen people eat rice and peas and curry goat, I still think it's too much, but I'd rather give it with curry goat than curry chicken. It's just heavenly with curry chicken and white rice and, like she said, roti. I'm sorry.
What do you mean? You put the gravy on and you mix it up, and then you put the rice and peas with the
much.
It's too much. The dimension.
Yo, you guys don't want to have good like bowels, man. You need to get the beans in there with the fiber. Like you guys are joking around.
As a vegetarian,
all you guys with the white rice, all you need washouts, all of you.
As a vegetarian, I vote for the rice and peas. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yes.
But first of all, there's plenty of nutrients in the roti skin because it's full of peas. In case you didn't know. We're good.
And on top of that,
Ross, you need a washout. Get out of here.
Do you eat oxtail and white rice?
No.
Oxtail with rice and peas. I'm a rice and peas, and you know what? I would go so far to say I'd have curry chicken with gungo peas.
Wow.
What?
Yeah.
You're a peas guy.
You guys, you don't have to conform. Like you guys are caught in this thing where you're conforming.
Y'all are comedians. Y'all are jokers.
Do it.
When's the next show?
Discussion in one of our meetings.
Oh, that was great. But I'm kind of with Roz. I've had it before, but I enjoy the fluffiness of white rice, and I like to see the yellow of the curry or whatever go on the rice. I like the vision. You know,
white rice is for Chinese food.
And curry chicken.
Hot take.
I can't believe that's the debate, but that was wonderful, man.
Jay, I gotta thank you so much for joining us today. Like, you've put so much knowledge and shine such a light on everything. You over exceeded what we could have ever hoped for. So thank you so much from the bottom of our heart.
No, thank you so much for having us. You guys really exceeded the questions. Like I I never knew. Mike was like, we're going to ask you some questions. And I told Mike, like, just fire away. I don't want to know what they are. But I was expecting like the mundane questions. I can't even lie. I was expecting.
No, man. I not here. Know you, so I went.
Like the usuals, like everyone asked. You guys were like, damn. Yes.
What's your favorite color?
Yeah.
And we have the U word now, so now we can coin that, the U word. Okay?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And my favorite color is aqua brown. It doesn't aqua brown. This is great. Thank you so much for having me, man. I'm very happy. Very happy.
Yeah, I wanna thank you for coming, man. I appreciate you taking your time. You know, I've seen you've grown over the years. You know, you're like my little brother, right? You actually hang with my little brother. We're part of the same massive and everything. You know, we've done a lot together. But to see you grow from, you know, that kid that we used to go roller skating with to what you are now, right? It's good. It makes me proud, right? So
thanks, bro. Coming from you, that's a compliment. And nice meeting you guys. You guys have a great what's the word I want to say? Dynamic of left and right. I think Jordan gets on you guys' nerves, and I love that about him.
Yeah, that's what I do.
I love that about him. How can I piss you off? Like he's that guy. I like that. I like that guy. And great pleasure meeting you, Ruby and Roz. I like you guys. Great stuff. All right.
This has been the Technically Diverse podcast. Remember to hit subscribe on whichever app you prefer to get your podcasts. You can also connect with us on various social platforms. On Twitter, you can follow us at TechnicallyD. On Instagram, you can follow us at Technically Diverse. Or if you prefer to watch, subscribe to our YouTube channel that shares the same name, Technically Diverse. We also love getting feedback and ideas, so if there's anything you'd like to see, you can send us an email to technicallydiverse@gmail.com.
Time has run away.